One night, the band caught the attention of an agent named Chris O'Donnell.
I went to see them at a club in London, and it was quite interesting. I heard a voice that I hadn't heard in rock up to that point.
Chris signed on to co-manage Thin Lizzy with partner Chris Morrison. They thought the band would be a huge hit, but Thin Lizzy's first records were flops.
We were so poor. Philip and I went round to the record company and asked them for a box of albums. And basically what we did was go around the corner and we sold them to a second-hand record store so we could eat.
Times were tough and Thin Lizzy's daily rehearsals were intense. To relieve the pressure one day, the band began playing old Irish folk tunes with a rock and roll twist. They all knew the traditional Irish song, Whiskey in the Jar, from childhood. And though they had no plan to record the old standard, they were eventually convinced to release it as a single.
As I was going over the Cork and Kerry Mountain.
And we got a telegram from London saying, "Congratulations, Whiskey in the Jar is number 23 in the English chart." And we thought it was a joke.
It was the winter of '73, and unexpectedly, Thin Lizzy had their first hit.
I have it on the jukebox, and it's playing non-stop day and night. I mean, oh dear.
For Philip Lynott, the future would never look so bright again.
Wait for my daddy, oh, there's whiskey in the jar, oh.
I was tired of hearing rock and roll stars saying how sorry they were for themselves, you know, like how they disliked fame and how they were bothered. I really went for it, hook, line and sinker.
I took all of his money, and it was a pretty penny.
After 3 years of gigging in the pubs of Dublin and London, Thin Lizzy scored a hit on the UK charts in 1973 with Whiskey in the Jar. It was a celebratory time, but guitarist Eric Bell was uneasy with the band's newfound success.
All of a sudden, everyone did become interested in what we played and what we said and what we wore and what we did. And I could see Philip, who had a taste of the fame and fortune with Whiskey in the Jar, and he wanted more. Wanted it like there was no tomorrow.
There's whiskey in the jar.
Phil Lynott sought the spotlight. Eric Bell wanted no part of it. At a 1973 New Year's Eve concert in his hometown of Belfast, Ireland, Eric's anxiety reached a breaking point.
I just cracked up, basically. I just went sort of...
Started drinking during the day, and the gig was on at 9 o'clock that night.
And I walked on the stage, and I was like, just like a zombie, basically, just totally destroyed, mentally and physically. And I was standing there, and I was going, this is it, man. If you don't get out now, you're a dead man.
The next day, Eric Bell quit the band, and Phil's former Skid Row bandmate, Gary Moore, filled in on the tour.
For me to just join a band and play guitar and play with Phil again, it was great. I just walked straight back into it.
When Moore left to continue his solo career, Phil never wanted to be caught without a guitarist again. So in May of '74, the band hired two new guitarists, Scotsman Brian Robertson and American Scott Gorham. The quartet released their first album together in the fall of '74. Nightlife wasn't a hit, but the band's new double lead guitar style was getting attention.
You would read some of the reviews, and the reviewer would say, and that patented Thin Lizzy twin guitar sound. And I remember reading that going, wow, that's really cool. And I called up Brian and go, hey, Brian, we actually got a sound?
As they gained a reputation on stage, the boys in the band were getting known off stage as a rowdy bunch.
You got a bad reputation. That's the word out on the town.
And we always thought of ourselves as this is our gang. If anybody said anything against anybody in the band, they'd probably get their heads kicked in.
The biggest way to get a reputation was to be tough. And I got myself a reputation.
Decked out in leather and studs, Phil Lynott acted out the part of a street-fighting man.
Phil was kind of Liberty Valance, the gunslinger guy. A fight would break out, and inevitably all the rest of us would get dragged into this war.
Well, they've been the wild, wild ride, sailed all over the sea.
But it was the same two-fisted Phil who was capable of writing Philomena, a touching song about his mother.
And if you see my mother, tell her I'm keeping quiet.
Dublin artist Jim Fitzpatrick says his friend Philip was full of contradictions.
He had this great sort of poetic nature that was very gentle and a very feminine nature, which he would absolutely deny, but there you are. And he was creating a myth in himself.
In 1975, Thin Lizzy made its first tour of America, a country Phil saw in mythic terms.
America was always in his mind. You know, we all grew up with American imagery in our minds.
When he finally got to America, it was almost everything that he'd ever thought America was going to be. The whole L.A. scene, he just melted straight into it. He loved it.
They're living out a technicolor dream. Next day they're a star overnight.
The 6-week American tour only increased Phil Lynott's hunger for stardom.
Fighting!
But Thin Lizzy's next album, Fighting, failed to knock record buyers out in the fall of '75. So Phil and the band went to work on a record that, after so many failures, was their last shot at the big time.
We wrote, and that's when we came up with the Boys Are Back in Town.
G.I. Joe Is Back was the working title for a tune Philip wrote about soldiers coming home from Vietnam. The name got changed to The Boys Are Back in Town.
Friday night they'll be dressed to kill.
It was everything that Thin Lizzy represented. Friday night, dressed to kill, a few drinks, they wanted to meet some chicks, and they wanted to rock.
That you rocked in the corner, blasting out my favorite song.
The song was released as a single in March of 1976, and Phil and the boys were shocked as it raced up the charts, going to #1 in Ireland and #8 in the UK.
All of a sudden, we've got a hit record on our hands. What the hell's going on here? What do we do different?
It's very American sounding, you know. And that was the idea all along. We wanted a band to sound like that.
The song hit #12 in the States, and Thin Lizzy returned to America. This time, they were stars.
Philip had great fame, and he took me everywhere. They were great days. I was driving around America in Cadillacs with bars in them, things I never, from the poverty, remember, that we'd had.
We've made it. We did it. I don't know how, but we did.
Spread the word around. Get them back in town.
It was the high water mark of Thin Lizzy's career, but it wouldn't be long before the tide would turn.
Jimi Hendrix, as an artist, was very deep and very involved, and he believed entirely in what he was doing. He showed to me that a black fella could be the front of a band and be completely respected for what he did.
Tonight there's gonna be a jailbreak somewhere in this town.
6 years after Phil Lynott put the band together, Thin Lizzy finally scored a breakout hit with their 1976 album, Jailbreak. It was their moment, and the hell-raising Irish outsiders were suddenly on the rock and roll A-list.
You have these guys that are on the road, burning themselves out, working their brains out. Suddenly, they're being invited to parties that they'd never been invited to before.
27-year-old Phil jumped into the mid-'70s party scene, where his newfound stardom earned him a steady supply of drink, drugs, and women.
Dancing in the moonlight, it's caught me in its spotlight.
He had that magnetism. He was like a big black cat. There's no doubt about it. And he laid it on with a trowel. He knew he was sort of sexy.
I'm not like a pretty face, you know. Okay, people admire my legs and stuff, but my face, you know, it's another thing.
Now, Phil just loved women, you know, and he had a great way of getting women to come into his dressing room and chatting him up for wherever.
Thin Lizzy was now in demand. In addition to their shows, their tour schedule was packed with photo shoots and press interviews.
People out in Hollywood, they can make it to the stars.
As the band's frontman, Phil was feeling the pressure.
Drive around a big expensive convertible car.
The record company starts to spend money, radio starts to embrace you, television wants you, audiences want you.
You can't take it easy. That ain't good enough.
Phil used to take these things on himself. You know, somebody say, you guys ready to do an interview for TV or radio? And Phil go, yeah, I'll do it. 7 o'clock next morning, yeah, sure. Oh, the pressure was like intense, yeah, really intense.